This weekend, Micro Gap is taking us to South Downs National Park, and our first stop is Sisbury Hill, which is right behind me. This was a Neolithic flint mine and Iron Age hill fort. So what on earth is a micro gap? We at the channel feel like it's our duty to keep our viewers hip to all the lingo that the kids are using these days.
Wait, I'm not a part of this anymore. You and all your newfangled language. We're on a weekend break.
So a micro gap is like a gap year that you go travel, you take a break from life, and you travel around and you experience things, except instead of doing it in a year, you do it in 2 or 3 days.
Like a weekend.
Our second stop of the day is Arundel Castle, substantially restored in the 18th and 19th centuries, so it's in great shape. A small church on site has ornate and over-the-top perpendicular Gothic decoration, reflecting the tremendous wealth of the Dukes of Norfolk. The gardens on site are particularly impressive, and much of the decoration is carved out of wood, which is unusual. The castle is still occupied, so you can only see parts of it. But you can look through the windows and imagine just how the other half lives. Our next stop is a path through this famous tree tunnel on an old stretch of Roman road. The path leads to Hulnaker Windmill. Built in 1740, fell into disuse and then was restored again in the 19th century. Prior to its restoration, the windmill was the subject of a poem by Hilaire Belloc. Sally is gone that was so kindly, Sally is gone for Hanaker Hill, and the briar grows ever since then so blindly, and ever since then the clapper is still, and the sweeps have fallen from Hanaker Mill. The weather forecast for the weekend had been rainy. We'd missed a lot of it, but the roads were certainly wet. Yew trees are rare in England these days, and intact groves of them even more so. Here at Kingley Vale, they have a phenomenal yew grove, and this was our next destination. Very little grows underneath a yew tree, and they're toxic to humans, of course, and cattle and horses as well. So it's no surprise that they were eradicated purposefully by farmers. They live a long time, although it's hard to tell just how old an individual specimen is. But minimally, they can grow at least 400 to 600 years, potentially more than 1,000 years. In person, they feel ancient, substantial, and important. This is the grove of the grandfather tree, an ancient yew that is reproduced by stretching its limbs out, touching the ground, and sprouting new trees in a circle around the original one. we would not be the first to compare the experience of being in this grove to that of being in a cathedral. With daylight fading, we hit the road, headed off to the warm pub where we'd spend the night before the second and final day of our micro gap. With a long drive ahead of us to get back home today, the second day begins on the road, en route to what's going to be really just the single stop of day 2, which is the Bombay Sapphire Gin Distillery. The tour starts, how else, with a do-it-yourself gin and tonic.
Bombay Sapphire gin. So a huge amount of gin is here.
Magnificent glass houses which are in front of this. They were created by a guy.
In these glass houses, they grow examples of the plants from which the botanicals are harvested for the actual gin. After you experience the houses and look at the plants, you get to go to another room where they crush up some of those botanicals and let you smell them, see if you can pick out those flavors when you're trying the gin. The weather cleared up nicely just as we headed into the second half of the tour, the cocktail making class.
Cocktail, you'll need this glass right here, your balloon glass. We're going to garnish straight, grab those 2 lime wedges. And I should also mention what Saint Germain actually is. It's an elderflower liqueur.